You make this rather snappy, won't you? I have some very heavy thinking to do before 10 o'clock.
All right, welcome into Greenie Sports Cards Live, presented by Collectibles on SI. We have a tremendous show for you this evening as we and the collective industry itself catches its breath and recovers from the biggest week in the hobby every year. And that is, of course, the National Sports Collectors Convention, which just finished its 45th edition in Rosemont, Illinois. And what a week it was. We're going to be able to recap that with you first and foremost with the man himself, Greenie from Greenie Sports Cards. And he was there all week with a booth. He was there all week with content. He was there covering very interesting things and being a part of very interesting things himself. And we can't wait to catch up with Greenie and talk about his adventures last week. And of course, Joe Wysmierski from Phoenix Card Shop will join us for hobby news and views. Joe is also out there for his first National Sports Collectors Convention experience. So very excited to hear about Joe's experience and what he went through and what he saw and what he experienced out there at the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center. And then we're very excited a little bit later on to welcome in the managing editor of Collectibles SI, one of our premier partners here on Greenie Sports Cards, Danny Black will get to join us. Danny was out at the National covering things from all sorts of angles. And of course, both Danny and Joe are part of Cut the Nonsense, seen here on the Sports Cards Nonsense Network. They had a big announcement last week as well. So we'll touch on that a little bit. We'll talk to Danny about his Hobby News Daily adventure and talk to Joe about his news and views, talk to Greenie. We've got some really interesting content to recap, and we can't wait to get into it with all of you. Of course, a big part of this show is you, the viewership, which continues to grow week over week as a part of the Sports Cards Nonsense Network and our own channels. This is the first multi-stream broadcast for the hobby industry. We've been doing this about a year and a half, almost 2 years at this point, and we've launched across multiple platforms. You can interact with the show, comment in the sections below on the stream, wherever you may find us, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, Twitch. You can even find us on LinkedIn, of course. So make sure you're joining the show. If you have any questions, drop those in the comment section. If you have any ideas for guests, drop those in the section. And we appreciate you continuing to join us week over week. So without further ado, let's go ahead and welcome him, Steve Greenberg, aka Greenie, owner and operator of Greenie Sports Cards. Greenie, what's going on, my man?
You're right. Catching our breath from the show. It was one heck of a ride, one heck of a week. Not a bad tired whatsoever, Jeremy.
Yeah, it's an invigorating tired. It's the National is like nothing else on this planet, Greenie. It continues to get bigger and bigger every year. If you have not seen it, it is hard to really explain the energy in the room, the enthusiasm, excuse me, the amount of people. A couple of quick facts and figures for you, and we'll kind of get into it from the show production standpoint. Of course, JBJ and the board itself, the NSCC board, pulling off a tremendous event. The National is the largest gathering of collectors and dealers and any group interested in buying and selling collectibles. It was started in 1980, and the National has grown into this once-a-year extravaganza. It is the premier showcase of the event for all facets of the hobby. And it has been said, of course, if you can't find it at the National, it doesn't exist. So, Greenie, a couple things for you here. Record number of dealers, record number of attendance. There was a 30% larger footprint this year, 650,000 square feet of space was occupied. That's nearly 20% more vendors than it has been historically. There were 75 new vendors upstairs in a new part of the convention space. And it was pretty tremendous. So what was this is multi-number of nationals for you, of course, as an exhibitor, a dealer, a participant. What were your initial reactions and what was your biggest takeaway? And we'll start with that kind of high level perspective.
Well, I'll tell you, the biggest takeaway is that this hobby is going nowhere, right? I mean, it is as popular as ever, and it's gaining new people all the time. And say what you want about having, Tom Brady in the card vault and the influencers. Anybody that's giving publicity to the cards is a good thing, and it's bringing more people into the hobby. Whether it's high end like banker investors, real estate moguls that really know nothing about cards, but they see all these people spending a lot of money as a new way to invest. That's great. It's pumping money into it. And the content creators and influencers, posting tons and tons of videos with a lot of people in the background. I mean, that's never a bad thing. So, that the hobby's going nowhere. It's the record attendance is, yes, for the National, but it's happening at small shows in, Cleveland, Ohio, and Des Moines, Iowa. I mean, people are going to shows everywhere. So the takeaway there for the National is that this hobby is still it's alive, and it's only going to grow every year. You said there were 75 new tables upstairs, and that's a big room upstairs. They hold a big show there twice a year. I'm excited to see what could happen up there next year, right? I mean, there was 600 vendors, 600,000 square feet. I don't know this number to be factual, but I did hear somebody say that there was $500 million in transactions. I mean, I mean, how do you really know that?
Yeah, how do you really know? But it's a remarkable event, particularly coming out of in 21 when it was back in Rosemont post COVID. We knew things had changed. The industry was different. There were more people there everywhere you looked. For as many dealers as there are, for as many spaces as there is no shortage of people congregating in and amongst the aisle space. There's transactions happening at every booth. And it is a remarkable industry and an event because of the family nature of it as well, and the generational nature, I should say. There are kids. There's 10-year-old kids walking around with Zion cases. There are veterans and nostalgia, people looking for that kind of stuff, grandparents walking around, and you have everything in between. And so it's a ridiculous amount of money transactionally, but experientially, it's pretty tremendous. One of a kind moments, the amount of star power this event brings, and that you could see it, quite frankly, in a corner of the space that if you didn't even realize the TriStar Pavilion was there, you might not even realize the sheer volume of Hall of Famers and All-Stars and notable names throughout celebrity fandom. And so that's remarkable. Greenie, you had a bit of your own experience, but before we get to that, we want to run the first recap video for the National, and we'll come back on the other side with a really cool story, speaking of celebrities. So hey, let's take a look at that first video for the National Sports Collectors Convention 45th edition.
I have a ball from Tom Brady's first ever NFL game.
So yeah, high level
yeah.
stuff for you there. Greenie, there's a little snippet in there about you having a ball from Tom Brady's very first game. We do have another video to show on that. I want you to set the stage on this a little bit before we show that, and then we'll come on the backside of that and talk about it.
So, yeah, I do. I have a football right here. This is from the 2000 NFL Hall of Fame game, which ironically was on July 31st, 2000. And 25 years to the day, July 31st, 2025, I was able to get this ball into Tom Brady's hands. We followed. We had an idea of where he was going to be, and we took a little bit of time. We got to stand pretty close to Tom. He went a different direction, which it is what it is. But I knew which booth he was going to be at, and I was able to get a ball to a friend of mine who was able to show Tom, and he was able to take a look at this ball. And interestingly, 25 years to the day that he played in his first NFL game, he got to rehold this football.
That's pretty cool stuff. So, Haley, let's show everybody what that looked like.
I have a ball from Tom Brady's first ever NFL game.
Yeah, that was really cool. That vendor, John Ryan, I've known for 20 some years. I knew that Tom was going to be at his booth. We tried to get him first at the card vault by Tom Brady because I knew where he was going to be there. Ultimately, he didn't sign the ball, which is okay. We can leave that for another day. But he did get to see it and he got to hold it, and getting that on video is pretty neat in itself.
Yeah, it's it's just really cool stuff. I mean, and that's the part of the hobby, right? The nostalgia factor, the fact that this is a real guy. He may be the GOAT in most, if not many, people's eyes. And there he was holding that football again, and it's all part of history. So,
Yeah.
speaking of
Real
history,
quick, Jeremy, but
yeah, go ahead.
before we move on, so these videos, I had someone say, boy, that the National put out a really good video. That was our video. Adam Roberts Creative .com. You can see him. We worked with him before at Notre Dame, which is only 2 hours away. This guy brought all these apparatus. I mean, you should have seen him walking around with these cameras. And I mean, this was a first class done. We had Casey Photography. She was there with him taking still pictures, and then relaying all of this footage to Haley, who put these together, overnight. I asked Haley if she could get something done, and Haley was like, "Well, where am I supposed to find it? I have 530 files." So, I know that there was a million cameras in that room. I don't know what other people caught on camera, but I can tell you when we put out some content over the next couple of weeks and months, there's going to be some really cool stuff that I think that only our cameras caught.
Yeah, it's a huge team, Greenie Sports Cards team, by extension, full-time team and part-time extension, and a bunch of tremendously talented people that jump in where we need it, whether that's in the broadcast space, the live event space, or the custom card production. Greenie has assembled a tremendous team, and yeah, it's really overwhelming content that we're going to continue to produce out. So today is just a taste of that.
Yeah, that booth was, I mean, our booth was crazy all week. Adam and John were really running the booth. I was working there. I was working with Adam doing the photography. I was with Joe. I was with Danny for a little bit. I mean, it was pretty wild, and a lot of it's captured, which is really cool. And yeah, it was cool to see Tom Brady walking around the show. It was.
Yep, it's it's very cool stuff. And there were a lot of breaking news, a lot of action. One of the announcements that came out as a part of this process is where the National will be headed. Of course, next year in 26 and 27, it will be back in Rosemont. The IX Center in Cleveland may very well be off the table moving forward with city legislation reallocating that building. But the vote did take place. There is, for those of you that don't know or aren't familiar, and there's a lot of conjecture and those in the comment sections of various outlets on why things happen or where this goes. I can tell you firsthand and factually, there is a process to this, and there are a lot of moving parts. First, there are only so many venues in the entire country that can hold a show of this magnitude. This was a 650,000 square feet show. Traditionally, it's been about 450,000 to that sweet spot of 500. So you start with the venues that can actually hold an event of that size. Then you talk about the infrastructure, the hotel capacity, the transportation, the airports, all the things that go into that, the production capabilities. And so you have a very limited number of venues that could even hold this convention. And then let alone availability.
Really important. There's something really important about these venues that you know very well, but other people don't know. Well, listen, there are huge venues around the country. What some of those huge venues don't have is the Wi-Fi capability. Everybody at this show is on their phones, on their computers, on their iPads.
That's right.
Checking comps, streaming. And while the car show, the home and garden show, those are big shows, not nearly half of those people need the Wi-Fi like we need the Wi-Fi. So just because you have a large building, it doesn't mean that they had the Wi-Fi capability. And I know the air conditioning people say that that was fixed. There was other reasons why the air conditioner didn't work last year. And the other thing, and Thomas Fisher's pointing it too, you, you, there's one weekend, 2 weekends a year that the National wants to do this show, and these buildings need to be available. So everybody that says go to Orlando, go to Las Vegas, go to St. Louis, yeah,
Right.
that would be great. It's not that simple.
So that's where I was heading, Greenie, too. There's a lot of nuance with that. The Wi-Fi, of course, tables, infrastructure, but you got to have dates availability too. And these shows need to book out. We're talking about 2028 and 2029. They need to book out in advance. So when you start with that limited number of availability, then there's a process with the producers will go out and investigate all of this and determine the options. And then the NSCC board takes over and it goes to a vote. And what people don't realize is the NSCC is run by the dealers. The founders really did something right in this case from a democratic standpoint. In the bylaws, it is owned technically by the dealers and the participants who elect a board to represent them and serve the best interest of the industry and the participants. So at which point you've got options on the table. There is a dealer meeting every year, and the dealers, the participants, these 650 companies and businesses have a chance to vote on where to take these shows. And this year, it was voted and announced that between Atlanta and Detroit, they both have the opportunity to come in and make their pitch and sell the dealers on why the convention should be held in their city, which has a tremendous economic impact on these cities when it comes in. And Detroit was voted for 2028. And so the National is going to head there for the first time. The next 2 years, it will be back in Rosemont. It will head to Detroit, and we'll see where it goes. So we can debate down the line the Detroit and that experience, but it's going to be in Chicago for the next 2 years. And we want to bring in somebody who experienced his first show in Chicago and his first national. Of course, that's our resident hobby expert, Joe Wysmierski of Phoenix Card Shop, and one of the 3 hosts of Cut the Nonsense that can be seen every Wednesday evening on Sports Cards Nonsense. So I want to go ahead and welcome in Joe.
Gentlemen, good to
Joe,
be
real
here.
quick, one thing I wanted to mention, one of my favorite parts of the National Sports Collectors Convention, and this was my 14th experience since 2000. All of the stuff that goes on is great, but my favorite part is seeing old friends and meeting friends and connecting with the hobby, if nothing else, for once a year. And to me, Joe, you've always been about this tall, but I got to meet you in person for the very first time, and that was one of my favorite parts of the event.
Yeah, it was great. We had our first sleepover, which was fantastic, at the Airbnb. Also, I'm glad you guys are going to allow me because my sources, I have the list of who voted to go to what location, and we're going to put that later. Just teasing, but I thought that was pretty cool, learning about just the different, like the political side of it. And while we're speaking of that too, have you guys ever seen a $25 bill?
A $25 bill?
No? Okay.
No.
Well, what I'm holding right here is a Trade Night wristband. This is a $25 bill at the National. The Trade Nights were so popular because it's an entire event, right? It's the National that goes on from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Other than Wednesday, but then they have the Trade Nights afterwards, the different parties, the different breaking teams, the different corporate parties. But the Trade Nights are absolutely huge. And the Trade Nights almost are a card show within themselves, and kind of learning about that and what goes on in those areas and the popularity of it just absolutely blew my mind. Walking through some of the local hotels that were within, like I said, walking distance of the Donald Stevenson Center, it flat out said there's no trading anything in the lobby. They did a good job kind of policing that to keep all that energy and excitement to the trade shows. But I thought it was interesting that people were actually selling wristbands out on the floor. At one point, there was a line that was like 45-50 minutes just to get one of these wristbands. So I thought it was kind of unique. If you guys have never seen a $25 bill, I wanted to make sure you guys had the opportunity. That
Joe, I think that's light. I saw them going on the Facebook groups for $80.
Wow. And I
Mhm.
think 10-2 Greenie on what night. Different hosts had different guests there. So
But
that was
listen, well, I don't think that matters at all. I think people wanted to spend $80 to get into a free card show and set up their stuff, right?
I'm going to agree with you too, Greenie, because and here's what I think drove that price is in order for you to get a trade night wristband, you had to have a actual national ticket. So
Correct.
to your point, if someone didn't have that, they were in the area, they didn't want to spend for the ticket, they just wanted to buy a wristband and come on in. They had that ability. So the secondary market, I mean, it's if the hobby, if you have a question about it, if it's booming or not, look to the secondary market. That's gonna give you all the answers available there. But it was exciting. I mean, the opportunity that was allotted to me through Greenie, through our friends at Sports Cards Nonsense was absolutely amazing. Again, you guys, I've shared with you, I'm not a huge card show guy, but I definitely think that this kind of changed my outlook on things and just learning and understanding about card shows. I mean, flat out, and I'm going to call Greenie out here.
Please.
Knowing that this man has made a great living and does very awesome things within the industry by selling cards. But even this man on the screen with me had things that he didn't release out to the public. And learning about that kind of stuff, about why you go through things. There's certain cards that are super interesting. I always draw the example. Learning about a Scott Rowland grand finale card. It's not numbered, but those who know, there's only 50 of them. There wasn't another one in plain sight or even in the 650,000 square feet of the conference center. There wasn't one. And so dealers can ask premiums on different cards like that. And just learning, it was interesting. We had a half of a booth, right? We had on one side, we had some vintage stuff with Mike. And then Greenie had his stuff, which constantly just standing behind there learning about 90s inserts. And when people would come up and they're like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen one of these in forever or ever, was awesome.
Yeah, and I also get the people, telling me what the prices should be, but we've all heard that your best ability is your availability. And most of my cards, you're not going to find anywhere else, but they are available to you at a premium price because they're hard to find.
Yeah, and like Todd's saying, the asking prices. I mean, this is someone, I do work at a card shop. I had the ability to sell some cards there too. You got to know what you're going to. It's like going into a museum, right? And there are pieces that are on display. And if you're bold enough to ask the price on one of those pieces, and if you have it, you got to shoot your shot and go for it. But what I saw is more collectors were sitting around vintage. If you're looking to add to your set or build a set, those were the vintage collectors, and then kind of creeping into some of the 90s stuff. But if you're looking for some higher end singles and whatnot, I mean, let's keep in mind, travel to the show, paying for the space, paying for any credit card or setup fees, paying for your help there. I get it. It's not the price you're always looking for if you're looking for a great deal. But on these high-end cards, you have to expect that you're going to be asked top dollar. And in that regard, too, if you're coming to sell to one of these booths, you have to kind of be conscious, right? Like, if a card sells for $60 and you're coming up and you're asking for that on that side, you're not giving any wiggle room for that dealer. And you have to be able to separate the show floor and the show from a trade night. You're not trading straight across or biting straight across. Like, these people, this is how they make their living. This is how they feed their families. I get this is a hobby, but it's also a business. So we have to be cognizant of that as well.
That's a fair point, Joe. The expense, laden expense of everything that goes into a booth. Just say what you want about the breakers and that whole pavilion. I know people have different opinions on it, but that's a 5-figure expense just to get into the show and set up and be a part of it. And, without giving away trade secrets or anything, but the dealers themselves, Greenie has a tremendous amount of expense in shipping everything there. So yeah, I'm not one to comment day in and day out on prices of cards or memorabilia, but there is a premium to actually be there. But at the end of it, it is like the world's largest sports and entertainment museum that pops up for 5 days, and it is an unbelievable experience. Joe, what surprised you about the show? I know you were excited to see it. You were excited to get there. What was the most surprising thing to you that you weren't expecting?
Honestly, I was expecting. I mean, dude, this is gonna sound anticlimactic. I apologize, but like everyone was going to be overwhelmed, this and that. No, it was a card show, and this is what I like to do. Like I like being around and seeing cards and seeing that kind of stuff. Dude, it was just a dude, it was a great experience. Yeah, there were a ton of people there. Yes, people had Zion briefcases and luggage that they were towing through aisleways and getting bumped into, and people had to wait on the outside a little bit extra time. But even from that standpoint, the National wasn't like hard and fast on the times. They were letting people in early. Like they were making things accommodating. So as far as like the overall experience, dude, the only thing that shocked me is, and this is me being naive, I think everyone who's on camera, that's who they are in real life. I know, put it in the comments. I'm a fool. I get it. It's just crazy. Like you different generations of sellers, dealers, flippers, influencers, and the struggle for eye contact killed me. As someone who coaches sports and tries to, help younger generations on like tough interactions when you talk with people, those type of things. That was just a struggle for me because, this is our future. These are the people that are going to be building up our great country and doing things. So just being able to, that was a struggle, seeing all different age groups and struggling with being able to communicate. However, I did say before, there's some youngsters out there that are going to be great door knockers to sell, solar panels here in the future, because they did a great job coming up and even hearing no for an answer and then asking for follow-up. So that was pretty interesting.
How many steps did you get, Joe?
So I was over 47,000 steps for the 5 days. So Wednesday through Saturday, 4 days. Is that 4? No, that's 5. No, that's 4. Yeah. So it was a pretty strong. I was doing good. I got my my fitness circles in, which was fantastic. My steps went from an average of 12,000 down to 917 on Sunday. So we have a day of rest on Sunday.
Yeah, to get those puppies up on Sunday. So go ahead, Green.
Well, no, I wasn't going to say that. I was going to tell Joe that we're going to hold off on the new hobby stuff, and Jeremy's going to introduce Danny. We're going to bring him on so that we can all just share this experience from the National.
Yeah, before we do that, just want to give a little bit of an update on Danny in perspective as managing editor of Collectibles on SI, of course, our tremendous partner here, the presenting sponsor of Greenie Sports Cards Live. And if you want to master the world of collecting, make sure you get over to Collectibles on SI. It's your go-to resource, whether you're a newbie or a longtime collector. Make sure you unlock it on SI, part of the Sports Illustrated family. Find it on SI. And Danny, of course, it was the founder and editor of Hobby News Daily. So tremendous amount of perspective, and can be seen every Wednesday with Joe and Mike Geo on Cut the Nonsense, part of the Sports Cards Nonsense Network. So we do want to get Danny in here. We got a little extra time than we had planned for, so we got a lot to cover with him as well. So Joe, why don't you introduce one of your co-hosts on Cut the Nonsense?
Yeah, so I've said before that the gentleman's half man, half amazing. He is a absolute enigma. Danny Black. I learned a lot about this gentleman. We also learned the difference between jelly, jam, and serve, thanks to his lovely wife. So I'm thrilled that he can join us here on Greenie Sports Cards Live.
Thank you for having me.
I like it, Joe. Very good.
Welcome, Danny.
I thought you were bringing on somebody else after that introduction. Very, very appreciated, Joe. What's up, Jeremy? What's up, Greenie? Good to see you guys.
You too, Danny. First and foremost, we said it before, we appreciate the partnership with Collectibles on SI. And of course, there was a big announcement last week leading up to the National. Sports Cards Nonsense has been a partner of ours on the digital side, of course, the sports, the forums, social forums, and then with Collectibles on SI, one of the premier sites for hobby news, if not the premier site. Talk a little bit about that as a segue into what this all means and what you guys are doing on Wednesday nights.
Well, I'm glad you asked. We're really excited to have the Sports Cards Nonsense Network, which involves a whole vertical on YouTube, newsletter, and then, of course, the Collectibles on SI website. And it makes for an omni-channel experience for everybody. So if you like to read, if you like to watch, if you like to listen, and of course, we got Cassius behind me in almost every shot. So thanks for the comments. No, just kidding. We're excited by everything. Mike Giuseppe, Jesse Gibson are involved, and Joe and I and Mike host Cut the Nonsense, like you said, on Wednesday nights. And for some reason, people tune in to see us.
Hey, what's wrong with that? It's nothing's wrong with the little nonsense, and bringing Joe on board was pretty epic. I know that people were noticing him at the show and coming up to him at the National, and they like what Joe brings. They like what you guys are doing on Wednesday night. Of course, the sports cards nonsense, that show is legendary and people love that. But some of the offshoots, and then we know that there's going to be more that's going to come from this, and we're excited to be a part of it.
Well, we're excited to work with you guys. It's a pleasure, Greenie. It was fantastic getting to meet you at the National and getting to hang out a little bit. Jeremy, I'm sorry we crossed in the night. We'll have to hook up next year at the latest. But I am just still on a high from the National. I think I'm definitely not recovered on my sleep schedule. I don't know about you guys, but my feet are still barking and the sleep is behind. But I couldn't be on a bigger high from the show, and running into the hobby friends, like you were saying before, is definitely the highlight.
You got to experience a little bit differently than we were. We were behind the booth, and Joe was behind the booth too. So he had that experience helping out. You were on the floor, but you were also behind the scenes, and you got to talk to some pretty special people at the show. So what was your experience like at the National?
We were, first of all, it was a fantastic time, and I did not get enough time on the floor. That's probably my one regret. But we were able to sit down, and I say Joe came with me, and we talked to Ryan Hogue, and we talked to Mike Mahan, and just got a perspective of the hobby from the real influencers. Not the people with cameras walking around the floor, but the actual influencers. And it was really eye-opening from some of their perspectives, but it was also good to see how passionate they are for the hobby and for the collectors. And I felt better talking to them and hearing some of their answers for the future of the hobby and their plans. And I don't know about Joe, but I found both of them to be very down to earth and very accommodating.
Yeah, I'm going to continue my love fest for Danny Black. I mean, host of Cut the Nonsense. Danny, he allowed me to actually tag along and really sit in on these interviews and gave me freedom to ask questions. But it's cool to see someone who started something like Hobby News Daily and watch that evolve to what it is now. But to see how he interviews and asks questions and layers questions so that it really does tell a story. And then allows, for me to jump in to ask these questions of, a little bit of nonsense here and there, but to really kind of dig in from a Joe Schmo perspective. It was great. I got to sit there and chat with a gentleman who is in charge of all of the grading, basically meaningful, huge grading within the industry, coins, memorabilia, cards, all that kind of stuff. And I got to ask questions about hey, what does it look like in the back room for these graders? Like, what is that? Like, walk us through, their environment. That's got to be a huge thing for a grader, how their environment looks in California or wherever they're grading out of, to even dig in and ask, like, hey, you guys have different locations for grading. Yeah, we have grading in Japan. We have grading in California. We have it in New Jersey. Like, digging in and asking those questions and kind of learning about, the business and the collecting side of it. But then moving into someone like Mike Mahan, who I had the opportunity in 2023. He was 6 months into the role at the Topps convention at Chase Field here, and I got to talk to, or I get to see the same guy who was up there. He had the same energy. He was coming off of like more like producing large events, like the Carol Burnett farewell, to now he's taking over Topps and talking about frozen fractors and how we're going to be interesting here. But he did legitimately have the same energy that day as he did sitting down with Danny and I, even to the point where, little chest puffing here, we were doing good asking questions, and Danny taught me a little trick where he asked Mike, he was like, hey, do you have to go? And he looked up at Mike's handler, and Mike was like, no, don't even worry about it. He goes, keep asking the questions. I mean, we had a 20-minute conversation with a guy who is arguably the number 2 most important guy at Fanatics, and maybe a top 5 guy in the industry. And he gave us nothing but time, and he was a genuine person. And yes, he even asked my goofy questions. The very first question I asked him is I wanted to see the shoes he was wearing that day. He had a Nick Kurtz jersey on the day before. Just talking about like just being real out there. It was fun as I ramble on. I apologize, but it was a great experience, and I'm very, very grateful to Danny allowing me to tag along with him.
Well, if I can piggyback off that just a little bit, not just the two of them, but I will say that most of the people that I came across running the show, hosting the show, were incredibly nice. If anything, as a hobby, the consumer side, we need to get maybe our managers together a little bit. But I found almost everybody that we dealt with to be accommodating and wonderful. The prices, getting back to the earlier question, I did find to be a little bit high. Maybe I didn't see every table on the floor. I'm more of a vintage guy, but there's certainly, I didn't feel like there was bargains. I do think that the repack world and the under $100 world is dominating the hobby right now, and I'm curious on Greenie's experience selling also. But just on pure volume, and Joe also from the shop, I just see that being such a concentrated volume area right now.
The modern card world is absolutely volume based, and people are buying for the repacks. I mean, obviously there are collectors, and there are certainly prospectors, and that's not just with baseball. I mean, there's people that buy quarterbacks and hope that Bo Nix and Caleb Williams have big years, and I mean, that's a game that people play every year. So there was a lot of that. The case hits from Panini were a big deal, and those are for the repackers. I hope people aren't buying those to hold for 10 years. I mean, I think those are, what do you call that? Slot machines, right? I mean, that's exactly what the case hits are for. They're for the slot machines, and to go on Whatnot and buy the repack product for $100 and hopefully hit a $300-400 downtown. But the prospect game is still very strong, and that's in the Bowman baseball, and it's in the quarterback. So those, and they sell well, and you can put a comp number on those cards because preseason starts this week, right? So that kind of stuff we did very well with. Hall of Famers always sell well. The Dan Marino autographs and things like that. So we had, and yeah, you could see some video there. We had a really good time with the modern. The 90s stuff is very niche. While it sells terrific and it's a huge part of our business, not everybody knows what Joe said. That, I have a $700 Scott Rowland card, and they walk by and they're like, Scott Rowland, $700. Okay. Well, he is a Hall of Famer. We can argue that later if you'd like. That there are some cards that are very rare, and sometimes the names on the cards don't really matter. That particular one did because somebody wanted a very rare card because I guess Scott Rowland was there signing autographs, so that's why he bought that. But I mean, we sold a lot of just rare cards from different sets that people buy from the 90s, and sometimes the price doesn't matter and the name doesn't matter. If people are building those sets and they need those cards, you can't find them everywhere. You can't just go on eBay and find, some of these cards. So that's kind of things that we concentrate on.
Hey, and back to the volume comment too. Shout out to the singles club, right? I mean, they were churning all day, every day, slabs and great deals out there. There we go. We had another shout out just now about the singles club. I mean, they were fantastic and easy to work with. So, the people that really struggled with pricing, I would say walk around. I mean, if you only have one day, yes, there is some concern that you'll be able to see everything in one day. I get it. But if you do have the opportunity to spread out your trip, I mean, really take advantage, really like segment the actual facility itself. The other thing I can tell you is we had a lot of came up that said, hey, could you point me in the right direction? And, shout out to Ludex. We were able to pull up the app and kind of show them where they were. Having an interactive map like that, I'd be interested to see how many app downloads that they had this past week too.
Yeah, we
Ludex
definitely
huge.
did that.
Danny, I wanted to ask you, speaking of the repackers, was able to spend a little bit of time with the Arena Club in particular, learning about what they're doing. And to me, that's a fascinating development for the hobby. Is that where some of this is heading? They're buying up all this inventory, and now instead of buying a Topps pack or a Panini pack or Fleer or Donruss or whatever, you're going to buy a repack mix of different cards. I thought that was, maybe new to me, but that's a really interesting development in the hobby.
Yeah, it's funny you said that. I met with Arena Club when I was there. They're doing some really fascinating stuff in building I don't want to say a better mousetrap, but they are making the system much more trustworthy. I know they have some stuff coming out, but it's very, very much the future, Jeremy. I think you're right about that. I think a combination of a regular product, and then there also have a lot of people. Hey, what's going on, Kenny? There's a lot of people who like the digital, physical combination, or the ability to pull a card, online and sell it right back. So there's a lot of interesting developments if you follow them at all. And I think it's definitely the future to have the digital checklist and all the things that make people feel more comfortable beyond the kids and the people who are buying in person at a show. I think as a business model, it's hard to buy repacks by mail and feel that same excitement. It's really a scratch off right at the counter type of thing for a lot of people. But Arena Club is changing that, and a lot of people are changing that online.
And Kenny,
I'm sure you'll have more to come on what they're doing. There's some fascinating technology behind that, and transparency and letting people feel confident on what they're buying.
Jeremy, the other thing too is Tyler Tarver, who is another influencer. He shot live at the airport in O'Hare. They have a vending machine. It's called a Lucky Box, and it was a repack product in there that they had they had Pokemon, they had sports, or they had jerseys that were like mystery packs. So and he went and got one there. I think they were like $125, and they sell all the time. I see it all day long online.
Can I just give a shout out to everybody in the chat who's saying hello? I know you're used to me being able to type back, but I'm just going to give the verbal shout out to everybody, and I appreciate it. Thrilled to be here once again, and glad the guys are having me.
This is the power of live in quotes TV. You know, we have to shout it out now. Yeah, the repack is it's here. It's not going anywhere. You just hope that the people that are creating the repacks, you know, fair, if that's the right word, I don't know, um, value for what you're spending, right? I mean, there's no way that every $100 repack can get you $100 in return. It's just it's a losing proposition for those guys. But you shouldn't get a $10 card either.
And that's one of the reasons.
Nate Burns, he had his gold mine repack. At the end of the day, Greenie, you know this. He says it's just math.
That's all it is.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that, and Jeremy, to your question before, the idea that you can liquidate some cards right back when you buy online is a really fascinating concept. You may not get all your money back, but at least you don't have to hold a card you don't want. And I think that's a really interesting angle to it, just to kind of put a cap on that.
And one other thing, speaking of interesting things that I got to experience with Joe, of course, you could do a whole other show on licenses and who can make what and how these cards look like. But Joe, you and I had spent a little bit of time by the wild card booth and talk about some amazing artwork and graphics and what they're doing with, quite frankly, without the licenses, but still giving you the experience of the card and kind of their series. Some people don't love it. I thought the artwork was tremendous, and you were able to pick up. You bought something that was the very first purchase in that show for wild card.
Yeah, I actually have it here too. It was one of the first of this product, and it is really, it's an art card. It really is an art card. I made reference to anyone who's ever heard of Piggy Banks, who's an artist who does a lot of EQL drops for pieces. Like, you know, it's fun. This isn't a pump. This is something I want to keep for sure. But dude, it's a cool piece of art. And like Jeremy said, I had the distinct ability to be the first purchase of one of these cards at the show. Some gentleman tried to sneak in second and to say he was first, but the transaction complete.
No, it's you. So that's a 101 card and a 101 box. And so I got to see you, Joe, like a little kid. You were struck by the art, and I think fundamentally we could talk about prices and people who buy and sell cards all day, but I saw there the enthusiasm of somebody who was struck by a really cool piece of memorabilia, and you jumped on it.
Yeah, it was one of those things too. Like, I mean, when you see, again, everyone, anything you watch coming up to the National, everyone's like, well, if you see something, you got to do it. And Jeremy, I mean, me pulling the trigger on it, yes, say in the comments, it was a $250 purchase. I'm cheap, and I had to think about it and do that. But the next day, I walked over there with Steve, and they had already gone up to $300 a piece. So, it was interesting to see how things changed throughout each day of the National. You saw different, like, escalating prices going down on different items because people were really trying to go home with less. And then there were other people where stuff was limited and the price went up. The one thing that was interesting that didn't go up that I really didn't see a lot of is Trey Lance played a great game and started for the Chargers in the Hall of Fame game, did well, 13-20. And I really didn't see any pumping of Trey Lance at the show. So your thoughts?
Not one person asked for Trey Lance.
Because
at the end of the day, he is still Trey Lance.
That Greenie, you said exactly what I was going to say. Why would Trey Lance move?
We're a sensation, like how we are just in the world here.
I get what you're saying, Joe. I do. I do.
And Greenie, there were a lot of big case hit cards that people invested a ton of money on Trey Lance coming out, and I was just shocked to not see any of that kind of stuff. I know personally in the shop here, we were breaking live on Whatnot. I pulled the Trey Lance rookie color blast, and we sold it to a gentleman in shop for $7,400. Yeah, Yeah. So,
I don't know if I'd buy it back for 400.
well, yeah. No, I'd really have to think about it. Really,
I get it though. I get what you're saying. Yeah. You're right. But then, right, everybody's asking for Nick Kurtz, who's as hot as can be.
yeah.
Danny, Joe gave you well-deserved plaudits, certainly for your work at the show. You got to spend a lot of time talking to people. You do this every day, covering news of the hobby. What came out of that for you? What did you learn? Maybe a nugget that you can share. A couple of nuggets that really give us a sense of what happened and where the hobby might be going.
I think the biggest thing between now and let's say the next national is I think the grading landscape is going to have a complete overhaul. Whether it's certain companies that won't be around, certain companies that might take over the 2 or 3 spot. I mean, PSA will stay number 1, but I think the grading landscape is definitely going to change. Technology everywhere. Every company I talk to, background, the technology is absolutely dominating. The card manufacturers, fanatics, they want stores to live up to certain things with their software and be able to track certain things. And so from a technological standpoint, I think that's going to be huge. And then international, and it was Mike Mahan, or I believe, who brought it up. Just the volume of business that's being done overseas, in some ways, it pales, depending on what sport, to the U.S. He was talking about basketball being huge around the world. So I think the international business of grading end cards and the technology. And, I think those are the things that I would really look forward to by next year's national, if I was to say where I would focus.
Amazing stuff. Well, we can't thank you guys for joining us. You've got a busy week with your own media endeavors. You guys can be seen where tomorrow night?
Joe, we are Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, with Mike Giuseppe, the 3 of us, and it's Cut the Nonsense.
That's a fact. We'll be there. We'll be interacting on the YouTube stream, and we're excited for you guys to just stop on by and enjoy our take on things. Then you can also find me at Phoenix Sports Cards, which is on 59th and Thunderbird in Glendale, Arizona, at phxsportscards.com.
Great, guys. We appreciate it. We will be watching you tomorrow on the Sports Cards Nonsense YouTube channel live.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yep. We'll see you guys. Thanks.
Our pleasure. Let's do it again. All right, Greenie. Our
An hour
thanks
goes
to,
by too quick, man.
It
When
really
we're
does.
talking about shows like that. Yeah. Right.
For sure. Well, plenty of more content to come. Haley's got no shortage of content to go through along with the rest of our team. And our thanks to Haley behind the board helping run this ship. And of course, Danny Black, Collectibles on SI for their partnership, Sports Cards Nonsense for their support and their partnership. Joe Wysmierski, Phoenix Card Shop. Thank you for joining us weekly for hobby news. And, Thomas Fisher, shout out to Tom. You talk about going through inventory. His 54321 may have to be changed, but he's excited for the Detroit National coming up here in 2028. So, Greenie, most of all, thanks to you for allowing us to do this week over week, and your team. Just a tremendous job. Congratulations on a great show. And of course, may the cards forever be in your favor.
Yeah, we did. They said Adam, John did terrific. And the other Adam with the video, Casey, Haley in the back. Mike even helped us a little bit. Tom actually had to sit in the booth for a minute, but it was busy. We had a great job. We have the exact same spot next year, booth 1338. You'll see our commercials for that next year when we show you exactly how to get to our booth. So a lot of great things. And we can't thank everybody enough that stopped by our booth. So we appreciate it. And with that, Jeremy, have a good night, everybody.